There we go. Ooh, it's a big crappie. Why don't you get the net on this one?
Nice job. Oh,
That's a little better. Today, I'm going to show you how to mold this fish. I plan on following this video up with another on how to cast this fish, and then a third video on how to paint this fish so it's all ready to hang on your wall. We start the process by removing the paired fins, mostly so the fish can be separated easily from the mold. We snip them off with a pair of scissors, and for now I'm just going to put them in a cup of water. Keep them from drying out until we're ready for them. As close to the body as you can get. Now we're all ready to bed this fish and get ready to make our mold. So we start by finding an old board, something to support our mold. And I'm going to bed the fish in high fiber. Now this is just a material that I've had laying around for a while. I don't believe it's available anymore, but I have heard there's a substitute through Matuska Taxidermy Supply. It's a replacement for high fiber. It's their bedding material. Not sure what they call it. Now we have our bedding material shaped pretty close to the shape of the fish. And we just smooth it out slightly, and we'll put our fish in there. Now I'm going to have it facing right with just a slight curve on the tail. Now you want it bedded very close to center line of the fish. Nice and tight up against the body of the fish. Then we spread our fins and push them slightly into the bedding material so they stay in place. With the fin laying down close to the body, and then just work it out nice and smooth. This one has some split fins, so we're trying to put those together as close as you can. Now I just like to go around the perimeter of the fish with a brush, making sure that it's pretty tight against the body. So now with the tip of a brush dipped in a little water, I make some keys so the two halves of the mold will align together properly in the finished mold. Next we turn our attention to the fins. Another board, press out some bedding material. Now we smooth it out and we lay out our fins. Now the same as with our fish mold. We put a few keys so each half of the mold will align. Now we have our fish and fins all bedded and ready to mold. Now we have to make sure our fish is not too wet, so oftentimes I go over them with a hair dryer just to dry them out a little bit, but you have to be very careful not to apply too much heat or the scales will curl. And that looks pretty good. Now I move the operation outside simply because the Bondo makes a terrible smell inside the house. Now to make our mold, we use an auto body filler and we thin it with a fiberglass resin. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50-50. This thins the body filler down considerably so you can pick up the detail. This is just the first part of making the mold. And that's about the consistency you want. Now you add a squirt of cream hardener. Mix it up good. Now we're ready to cover our fish. And we saved enough to do the fins at the same time. Now we wait for this to start hardening, and when it kicks some, we're going to follow this up with straight body filler to give the mold its strength. Now our first coat is starting to set up, so we can start with the straight body filler. Put in some hardener. And mix it up. Now we apply this all over our mold. Cover the whole thing, and this will strengthen it up. Probably a 1/2 inch thick is what we're shooting for to give it the strength it needs. Now once this kicks, it goes pretty fast and it produces a lot of heat and you'll cook your fish. So I have a laundry tub filled with water right now, and as soon as this starts to kick, we will put it in there, to avoid that. Rubber gloves are always a good idea. Certainly don't want to do this with bare hands. I just smooth it out. So now our Bondo's starting to kick, starting to generate a little heat. So we're going to head inside, put this in the laundry tub of water. Now we have it submerged in water, and we'll just give it a little bit until it cools off. Then we can demold the first half. Now the first half of our mold is set up and it's cooled. So we're going to remove this from the board. I just use an old putty knife to loosen it up all the way around. And we'll flip it upside down. Just some suction holding it on. Now we just slowly start removing our bedding material to expose the first half of the mold. We clean it up, we put a mold release on it, and we'll be ready to pour the second half. Now we bring it back to our sink and clean it up a little bit. Now we got our mold all clean and dry. The next thing I'm going to do is apply a mold release. Today I'm just going to use petroleum jelly on a brush. And we just make sure we cover all the areas, but be careful not to get this on your fish. So now we mix up our resin body filler mix, add a hardener to it. Make sure it's mixed so it's all uniform in color. Scrape the sides. And here we go with our second half of the mold. I think I have enough for the fins. So now we're going to mix up the rest of the body filler we have right in the can here. Add our hardener. Mix it up good.
Yep.
Okay, now we strengthen the second half of our mold. With the straight body filler. And then we do our fins at the same time. Okay, this Bondo kicked just a little bit before I was ready, but I think we'll be okay. We got enough on there. It's starting to generate heat, so we're back to the sink we go. Now our mold is all cured, it's all cooled and ready to take apart and see what we have. I've taken this and run it through the bandsaw all the way around the edges. Just makes it a little cleaner for separating your mold. So now we stick a screwdriver in there and carefully pry it apart. Carefully remove the fish. And there is our mold. repeat this process with our fins. And there are our fin molds. We're going to scrub them with a brush and a little soap and water, and they'll be all ready to cast. So here's our finished mold. One thing I'd like to point out, if you haven't noticed already, was the bottom of the tail got cut off. Not to make excuses, but I've gotten rid of my bandsaw that I normally use, and I did this with a Sawzall, and I just got a little sloppy. This can be fixed, but it's an unnecessary step, so just try to be careful and you can avoid mistakes like this. And here are the fin molds.